One thing I've realized over my lifetime is that, business is just like life. In other words, business is just like is all about relationships. It's all about having conversations with people. And relationships are built on conversations. I learned something called relationship marketing years ago, and I read a book on it. I said, well, isn't that all marketing is relationships, building relationships? Yes. What is sales? Relationship. So today I want to focus on conversation tips, 3 tips for conversations that can convert. Now, by conversion, I mean like a first conversation that leads to whatever you want the next step to be. That could be another meeting or a longer meeting, could be a proposal, could be the person to say, yes, let's get started, either of those. And that, of course, will contribute to your bottom line, help you increase your sales. So how can you make sure all your business conversations move the way you want them to? And there's lots of things to think about, but I'm going to focus on just 3 today. I'm going to talk about asking, listening, and serving with the benefits. So by that, I mean asking powerful questions, listening deeply. I'm going to teach you 2 levels of listening, and then learn how to think about serving the client by talking about the benefits that they will receive. One of my posts I did years ago was stop selling and start serving. If you're trying to sell somebody something, they're going to notice it and they won't like it very much. But if you're serving them and finding ways to serve them and outlining how by serving them, they will have a better business and better life, they might just say yes. Okay, let's start with powerful questions. So years ago, about 18 years ago, I took a course in coaching because, of course, I wanted some professional skills. And the most important thing I learned was a powerful question. And I could spend an hour on powerful questions, but I'm going to keep it really simple. When you're in a conversation with a prospect, you're trying to find out information that will help you serve them. Some people call it a needs analysis, but essentially you're trying to uncover that need, problem, whatever's bothering them that you might be able to solve. So questions are really important, and the right questions. So I found that the best kind of questions basically start with how or what. And this is something I learned in the coaching school. And I'm going to just ask Renee to unmute for a moment. And I'm going to ask Renee just a few questions and see if you can understand what I mean here when I talk about how or what. So we're going to pretend we've just met. So Renee, tell me a bit, what's working well in your business right now? What's going pretty well?
Yeah, well, I've been doing voice acting relatively recently for just over a year. And what's working well is that I have landed some significant gigs. I've signed with an agent. I've had a regional TV commercial. So considering that I'm new in the game, I've had some really big wins, and I'm really happy and proud of that.
Great. And so wanting to sustain that kind of momentum, how are you planning to do that? What's in place?
Well, just like you say, getting those relationships going. So, one thing that I have been doing is talking to voice actors, particularly ones that are here based in the GTA, just because it is a very welcoming community and we like to support each other. Some voice actors, females, have very high voices. I have a very deep voice, so we're not going to be picked for the same project. But if we have a relationship, then we can now refer one another. And the second thing is those who hire, like casting directors, video producers, reaching out and getting in contact with those people, people who produce commercials, people who do post editorial production for commercials.
Great.
So,
I'll stop you there. That is a great plan. So
okay.
in one word, what is the thing that you need to overcome? What's one challenge that you're facing in business?
In relation to what I
Getting
just said,
business, getting business as a voice actor. What's one challenge you'd like to overcome?
um, getting to talk to enough people to build that roster.
Right. So just there, I've demonstrated, I've allowed the client to talk about things that are working well, so they feel better about their business and that I'm not looking for problems right away, that they have a plan and I want to know that they do. That's really great information. And now I've uncovered a challenge, which is getting to talk to enough people. So then I can move from there to start talking about how I would address that concern. And that's an immediate concern for her. So how and what questions are really important. The other thing is try not to ask a question of a prospect that you could have found out by looking on the web. So if you ask obvious questions that they answer, you could have found it somewhere else. It's not impressive. What is impressive if you ask or mention, oh, I see you went to school at York University in the 2000s. You know, I was there as well. How was that experience for you? And it's a bonding question, right? That's based on information and research. And, you know, of course, you go to a closed-end question at the end of the conversation and it might be a yes or no. Would you like me to send you a proposal, Renee? Or do you want to be in touch again in a week's time? Do you have any questions about my service? Yes or no? So you move from the open questions, how and what, into the more closed questions, which are getting a direct response. So you've asked these questions, now what? Well, you have to listen. You have to really listen. Most people don't really listen. They're waiting to speak. And I'm guilty of that too. How many people here actually really don't think about their next question or what they're about to say? Okay. How many people are thinking about what they're about to say as they're listening? Yes, most of us do. So that's really an art, is to empty your mind enough to not be planning a response, to not be thinking what to say, to not be judging what they're saying, but to simply be present and taking it in, taking it in. And that is called listening to understand. And it's another level. You're putting 100% focus on the speaker. You're making them feel very important. What I found when I started coaching is when I started really listening to people, they would say things like, I've never been listened to before in my entire life like this, Bruce. And I'd say, okay, thank you. And it's because I was focused on them. I wasn't flipping it back to me all the time. I was constantly putting the focus on them. When you do that with a prospect, they feel flattered, they feel important, they feel listened to, they feel seen and heard, they feel valued. There's a huge benefit to all of this, right? And since your goal is to understand them, of course, you want to be listening carefully, but you don't just listen for the content. Obviously, you're going to listen to content and take note of what they are saying because you want to respond to that. But you also want to listen to nuances, tone of voice, the emotion, the energy. So if I hear Renee say something like, oh, I'm really worried about, getting enough people to talk to, and I got to do that in the next 60 days. I'm hearing something really different from, yeah, I want to talk to a few new people in the next week. It's very different content because of the emotional content. By the way, you don't need a video call for that. You can hear it in a person's voice, right? So you're listening for the mood, the tone, the sense of urgency or not. And you're also on a very deep level. If you want to go a bit deeper, listen for metaphor. So Renee might say, it's like an uphill climb, and I might say, well, where are you? Where are you on that climb? And are you halfway up the mountain, or are you part way, or are you quarter way, right? So by feeding into that person's metaphor, then you make a deeper connection. So once you've asked these good questions, you've got the the prospect talking, they're revealing important information to you, you're mining it for emotion and mood and urgency, etc. Then what do you do? Well, then you want to explain your service, but not in terms of the features, in terms of the benefits. How many people know the difference between a feature and a benefit? Something you've learned. Okay, a few of you do. Okay, so a feature is essentially the rational, factual thing. For example, I offer a weekly coaching session for an hour over a period of 3 months, every week for an hour on a video call. It's not very exciting, is it? But it is true, right? But what if I said to you instead, or in addition to that, so you say, so how often am I going to meet you, Bruce? I'll go, well, once a week for an hour on a video call, over a period of 3 months. What if I said, well, I'm going to meet you once a week for an hour or so on a video call, so you can have the consistent support and the accountability that'll dramatically increase your chances of doing what you said you were going to do and reaching your business and financial goals. That's benefits. And that is a benefit statement. And people will not buy, they will not move to becoming a client if you just list your features. For example, if somebody, for example, I'll give you a quick example. I walk along a street and I see dentist office, and it's a storefront. And I see, cavities, crowns, all this stuff I already know. And I think, what a waste of real estate. Why don't you put a statement up there saying the benefits of your particular dentist office? Painless treatment. We treat you with kindness and respect. Our clients keep coming back. Something that tells me something that is a benefit for me to go there. So think carefully about what you're talking about when you talk about your business to people, and make sure that you include the benefits that accrue to them. You want them to be here when they start and over here when they end. They're going to move somewhere. They're going to have an improvement or increase somehow. How are we doing for time, Tony? You're muted. You're muted.
You're good. Sorry. You are at 11 minutes now. You're good.
I'm at 11. Thank you very much. So I have 4 minutes left then. Okay, thank you. If you can just give me the 1 minute warning, that would be great.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, so I'll go, I've got a few more minutes, so I'll go more deeply into the benefits. I think that the difference between a feature and benefit is most important. I'll tell you a 60-second story. Years ago, I gave a workshop and I included the feature benefit talk. And a 50-something man came up to me after the thing was all over. And he said, "I'm really angry." And I said, "At who? I hope it's not me." And he said, "Oh, no, I'm not angry at you." He said he had taken the best sales, he was in some business office something thing. Sounds pretty vague. Anyway, he's in office services. And he said, if 20 years ago, and they told me it was the best sales training in the industry, if they had taught me the difference between a feature and a benefit, like you just did, I'd be retired now. And it was a great compliment, not just to my ability to explain it, but of the importance of benefits, right? So for example, I'm going to just on the fly talk about Renee. She was so kind to volunteer today. She's a voice actor. She goes into a booth and says stuff from a script and reads it, and they record it and they put it on something, on a TV commercial or a background to a documentary film or on the radio commercial, or whatever. Yeah, so she's not going to show up and say, "Yeah, I do voice recordings." And the person hiring is going to go, "And?" Yeah. So she's going to say, "I have a distinctive voice that is close to a baritone range, or at least alto range in the woman. There's only 5% of women who have this lower voice, and it is a voice of authority." And I can tell you the studies that prove that a female voice within the lower register has more authority than the chipper soprano type voice, right? I'm just suggesting that. Or she might say, you know, being relatively new in the business, I'm enthusiastic and you can count on me that I'm going to show up with 100% energy. I'm not jaded, I'm excited. Whatever the thing is that gives her competitive edge, is the benefit to the person who's going to hire her, right? So one thing you can do is you can set up a chart, and this is the first thing I do with every new client, is it's simply a chart with two columns. On the left are the features and on the right are the benefits. The features are your offerings. The benefits are the emotional or financial thing that they get, the benefit that accrues to them by choosing that thing. And then, of course, what you can do when you have a feature and a benefit, you can combine the two to create what's called a value statement or a value proposition, right? So people might say, "So Bruce, what's the value of coaching? What are you going to bring to me?" Well, I'm going to meet you every week for an hour online on a video call so that you'll have the support and the accountability you need to reach your goals and reach those financial goals with full support from me. You're very much more likely to do that with my support and help and the consistent motivation. We're going to set things moving and we're going to keep them moving. 1 minute. Thank you, Tammy. So now we're going to move into a very important part of the meeting for me, which is Q&A, because I do want to hear your questions. I do want to share with you some of the things that I've learned over 18 years of coaching. And the last thing I'll say is that what separates me from most other coaches is I had 20 years as a writer of marketing and sales writer, 20 years in the corporate world, dealing with the top 10 companies, top 100 companies, rather, in Canada, helping them communicate. So when you work with me, I am your communicator in your corner. I help you communicate in both verbally and in writing in ways that nobody without that experience could ever do. Thank you for your kind attention. And we will now move to questions. Anybody at all? And sorry, Tammy, did you want to say something?
No, I was going to thank you so much, Bruce. Fantastic. And what I want everyone to do right now is if you can move your mouse to the top right corner of your screen where it says view, and click on gallery so that we can see everybody small, so Bruce can see you better. And yeah, go ahead with your questions.
Yeah, just open your mic. You don't have to wait. Just unmute. And there's Larry. Thank you, Larry. What's your question?
Thank you. Really enjoyed that sharing. Thanks for sharing, Bruce. What would you say in your experience might be the greatest challenge to entrepreneurs?
Wow, good question. Good one. Okay. I think clearly the biggest challenge is creating a steady stream of prospects. So what they call the funnel, of having people coming into your funnel. And there are many ways to do that. There's ways to do that through advertising, through online advertising, to generate leads. Lead gen, it's called. Not something I'm an expert in, but I refer people to that kind of service. Tammy might be good at that. Somebody else might be better at that. But certainly the biggest challenge I hear is a steady flow of prospects, finding them and sustaining them. Anybody else?
I have a question, Bruce.
Uh-huh.
What would be, if you could give every small business owner one piece of advice, what would it be?
Okay, just one.
Yeah.
It would be around the features and benefits, because it's the area. Like, I'll just do a quick poll. How many people here have a written marketing plan? A written marketing plan. They actually wrote something down at some point. It might be buried in a file form. Okay, so most people don't. And as part of that written marketing plan is a chart that lists the features and benefits and has a good list of value propositions or value statements attached. So the advice I would give is to figure out the benefits of your service or your product to the ideal prospect, and then create written value propositions or value statements. My value proposition is I help small business owners land more of the right clients. That's called a value proposition. It's usually less than 15 words and covers a lot of territory. I help who? Small business owners. Do what? Land more of the right clients. It's all there. And as a writer, I could write one of those for you in 10 minutes. In fact, if you come on your free call with me, I promise to give you at least a start on a powerful value proposition. One sentence that can land for a prospect. Any other questions?
Yeah, I've got a question actually. So can you tell us about a recent client that you've helped? And like, what was the before and after?
Okay, well, I think one of the most dramatic ones, and this is not specifically around marketing and sales, but around productivity and process, business process. I had a client who owned a recording studio. And in 2020, in March, you all know what happened. The city of Toronto said, you cannot have anybody in your place of business. There was a complete lockdown. It's like a nightmare that I want to forget. So he said, Bruce, now what? Because he had people like Renee in his studio every day recording voices. And he had clients in his studio watching the recording and approving the recordings. Suddenly, it was like he was going to go out of business. And I said, wait a minute. Isn't there such a thing as at-distance recording or remote recording? He said, yeah. Isn't there Zoom? Couldn't we bring the client into the meeting electronically? So together we set up, we would only work with voice actors who had home studios. So we could do a reliable, functional, excellent recording. And we brought clients in through Zoom. So they were in the room virtually. We put a camera in the booth so they could watch Renee do her thing. They were listening live to all of the takes and could approve them online. And guess what happened in 2021? He had his best year in 15 years of business, his best year, with nobody coming in his studio. And that's the kind of thinking I bring, out of the box thinking. I just say, okay, it's a problem. There is a solution. There's probably several. And I had a background in music as well, music recording, and I knew that the technology was there. We just had to find it. Yeah, quick, I guess one final question, Tammy, from Khalid.
We don't have any time for more questions, unfortunately, but we're going to have, if you want to put your information in the chat, please, for us, Bruce, and people can book that video call. And I mean, hey, why not go get a free one-liner, right, from Bruce? I love your one-liner, Bruce. It's really effective. So
Thank you.
thank you so much.